So great and hard to talk about topics. He has staggering moral fiber. How he's totally committed, completely ethical, totally admirable. No pressure if you can hear this, but honestly, how is your hero to me?
You got some background.
John, you joined us before, and it was pretty incredible testimony you gave, and you devoted your life to advocacy for child trafficking, and even 9/11 truth. Maybe you could explain to us, in the last decade, what do you think the most challenging parts of coming alive on some of these issues have been?
Probably the hardest thing, and it continues, is just realizing that pretty much everything that I was told and taught since I was in grade school is probably not true.
And hello and good evening and welcome to the Traffic Report.
Well, there you have it. Welcome everyone who is joining us for the premiere.
And L's still going on. So
I was like, who was that?
Here we are.
We have a hi Trish.
Our special guest.
Hey there.
We have two special guests. We've got Kelly with us tonight, our researcher extraordinaire, and one of the people, and they're both my heroes. I've been paying attention to Trish even way before I knew you, Howie, and she's done some amazing journalism on Syria and the deep state and about every other topic I can think of. And she should have her own show on.
I feel like I've known Trish for like a really long time. Have we ever spoken?
I don't think so, Howie. I feel like we have, but honestly, I think it's only been through tweets or direct messages or something. But I do feel like, we have a friendship that just goes way back. So
let me just explain before we get going here. This is not how Trish normally appears.
No, I was at this is my
no, not what you're wearing. Not what you're wearing. But we've had obviously some technical difficulties in trying to get Trish on Google Hangouts. Unfortunately, those could not be conquered this evening, so we settled for the next best thing, which is Trish by FaceTime, and Kelly and Howie are with us on Google Hangout. So that's why I'm sitting here holding my cell phone like an idiot. So, but it's worth it because Trish is here, and our show tonight, What's So Fucking Funny is the name of the show, and Kelly made a great meme of Rainn Wilson, laughing and with all the tweets that he's put out about child rape and eating children, and this stuff is just unbelievable. And Trish, I was listening to, if you don't know, Trish's and Albert Bashai have a great show they do every day at noon on Facebook, and Trish was covering all this stuff, and I'm like, my God, the research that she's already done on it. And as usual, I was behind the 8 ball, so I begged her to come on and talk about some of this stuff, and have at it, Trish. Where do we start with these?
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the characters in this whole situation as Hollywood implodes, as we're seeing, is, you know, Kevin Spacey was accused early on, if you remember, and over the course of the time that the initial accusations came out, he, first of all, responded by conflating his being gay with having sexually assaulted, I believe he was 12 years old at the time. So this is not, you know, the kind of thing where he's 19 and the kid's 16 or 17. 12 years old at the time. So this is...
Sorry about that. Sorry.
And then since that time, there have been a total of 6 separate individuals who have now accused Kevin Spacey of assaulting them when they were young. They were 12-ish for the most part, and I think some may have been younger. So, you know, again, we're not hearing anything about this. And we also know Harvey Weinstein is a raging child rapist based on numerous accounts by highly credible individuals. And, you know, but I think, again, what we're witnessing is the deep state sort of eating itself, its own tail. And as they try and respond to these revelations that are surfacing with their own ridiculous psyops, such as the Me Too campaign that it appears emerged out of this in order to attack one group. One group wanted to take down another group, so they used this and individuals to help them target Harvey Weinstein. Well, unfortunately, a whole lot of other people were really interested in what was going on, and they have now outed one after another in rapid succession of horrendous, not only social media posts, but behavior, and very graphic behavior, as you know, some of you may have seen in the Dan Harmon video, that this guy produced it, he scripted it, he lit it, he set scenes, he added sound effects, and he even exposed himself and mimicked raping an infant.
All right.
Had been drugged.
Now, and we were talking about this today, and we're going to get a look at this, you know, and I apologize for showing this, but people really need to see it. And notice that there's a Showtime logo on. This was actually produced. It was lit. I assume union workers worked on producing this, and how this even got to be, and how this would, and that's what we're going to talk about tonight, the whole culture, you know.
And he was hired after producing this. It's not like it just, you know, came around after the fact. It was already out there as something he presented as a piece of his work that he.
Well, here it is. Here it is in all its infamy, and you know, I've seen a lot of things, and I thought my shock level was manageable, but after I saw this today, I'm still reeling from it. So, just take a look at this, and it's just unbelievable. This is on YouTube right now.
Thank you for being such a good patient, for taking all the sleeping pills I prescribed to you, so that later tonight, when I'm crawling in your window, I can count on you to sleep like a baby. Well, I do everything but sleep with yours.
So this is...
Are you fucking kidding me?
There's even sound effects.
Yeah.
John, where was that originally shown?
It was a show that he was working on, and I forget the name. It was some other network, but Showtime I guess they were producing that Showtime's development because their logo is on it. And it's called Rick and Morty Have a Pedo Problem. And it's on YouTube. Actually, that is somebody I'll shout out to home because
this stuff is moving. I don't know
that has a commentary about that and has a piece of that video.
I mean, personally, I don't know who any of these people are. So it's like this stuff's moving so rapidly. I'm trying to keep up with.
Well, here's who Dan Harmon is. Let me pull that up. Hold on. I just have to Google scumbag. Wait a minute. And I'm sure Trish has run into this. If you look at the articles that are there, I mean, totally. They're calling that bad taste. But here's hold on, Howie. This is who Dan Harmon is. I guess he started out as a comic, and now he produces television shows and has for some time. And that's his Wikipedia. And his the name of that show was Rick and Morty. And I guess it's still going.
Yeah, and there was someone who was doing some research on Facebook, found one show where an adult tells a kid that he needs to lick his balls or something in order for something to happen. And so they literally this image had all the anatomy very visible and the whole thing. It was just like a total pedo grooming kind of scene. It was the most ridiculous thing. I cannot even believe that it shows on television. But you were saying that the media is covering for these guys. Remember, the current CEO of the New York Times is
Mark Thompson. Yeah.
Mark Thompson is the former. Hold on one second, guys. My kids. But they can't stop gaming for 10 minutes. But so Mark Thompson was at the BBC and outed by a BBC journalist, Liz McKean, for covering up decades of satanic ritual abuse and rape by wealthy and powerful people in the UK, including Jimmy Savile, who is known to have abused as many as 500 or more children. And these are young children that he brutalized. These were sick and dying children, and they knew about it. That very night,
they let this motherfucker into National Health Service facilities, hospitals, homes where these developmentally challenged children were housed, and he was like the night watchman and raping the. I mean, it's unbelievable. What God is it's pie and mash. Huh?
Trish, I'm very apprehensive about criticizing you, but it's way more than 500. There's probably no way.
No. I absolutely believe that, but that's I mean, even if you took the conservative.
We look.
Took the conservative number of 500. That's still way too many.
Yeah.
But so Liz McKean outs the guy in 2012 for covering all that up. Well, next thing you know, he's CEO of the New York Times. And then it was, in fact, the New York Times that supposedly debunked Pizzagate. It's just like, of course they did. He's covering it all up now here in the U.S. That's his job.
Yeah.
I've seen pictures of his Dan Harmon, and he's gone through stages. But if you look if you look at from about 2 years ago, when he's grown a grayish kind of beard.
Yeah.
Yeah, like Trish wouldn't know this about me. I go a lot on looks, and obviously looks are not going to be, always the tell. But it started with this. I read about this whole PEDO smile thing, that they all smile a certain way, and I really started like honing in on people that have been convicted, and it's like, I feel like I have a pretty good sense. And if you look at these pictures, if anyone Googles this Dan Harmon, I don't like the way he looks.
Look at our promo. That's the picture I used for our promo.
I guess I should have done that. When the gray beard.
Yeah.
I think it's the arrogance. Like, I think that's what's showing through, is that they put this shit right in our faces, and they know it, and it's
and that's the look, and that's the look.
And what and okay, so they're talking, and this is his punishment. He deleted his own Twitter account.
Yeah.
Wow. But what
Bar's show gets canceled, right?
Yeah. Oh, and they're whining about that. If you Google the articles on this asshole, that's what they're whining.
That's how they conflate. They bring something else in. It's like, when you start talking about Bill Clinton and it's like, well, what about Trump? Like they can't stay on topic, so they bring up him, and then it's somehow, oh well, something about his show. This has nothing to do with Roseanne. This has to do with content of child rape, making jokes about child rape. And that's what they always do, distract and conflate.
And, these tweets, and I can see, the tweets are, just, where does this shit even come from? And yet,
who would think of that stuff?
We're not going to call them pedophiles because of what they tweet. But I tell you what, old Dan and that little scenario that he worked up in there, he needs to explain himself. And all the executives that allowed that guy to make that, even if they shit canned it, need to explain themselves. And, he needs not to be working anywhere. I don't care that he thought, wow, it was just too much. Really? You thought that was too much? Where would a normal person even have that idea to do something like that?
Yeah.
Right. And I got a question for you, Trish. What do you think, or I guess why would you think, or any idea, these tweets that I've noticed, they're back from 2009, 2010. Why now are they being found, quote unquote? Because if I ever go back and try to find something I posted, it's impossible, right? These tweets go long back, right?
A very good question.
Really good question. I think one thing I've learned in the process of with everyone else in trying to understand what's going on is that there's very rarely like a single agenda at work. There always seem to be competing agendas which confuse the situation. And I think that's one of the things we're seeing play out in Hollywood, again, like with these warring factions that, are vying for control of, I don't know, money and the studios and talent or whatever, and that a lot of this seems awfully conveniently timed, and and like the Me Too campaign seemed way too successful on
finance.
Yeah, it seems to me that there had to have been a influential group behind it, and that's one thing we've learned, I think, in watching these scenarios play out over a couple of years now is that this stuff is never by accident or perchance, you know?
No.
And even with Asia Argento, I have to say, like, I have no idea what's going on there, but my own personal reaction to her reaction of Anthony Bourdain's supposed suicide was real confusion, because she was someone who came out and so bravely called out Harvey Weinstein at Cannes, right? Is that where it was?
Yep.
Right.
And, you know, this is a guy who was known for, you know, threatening people and you know, using black ops contractors to suppress people who might come forward.
Mossad.
Yeah, Black Cube. He's known for using Black Cube, which is all born on Mossad. And it's also an agency that Hillary Clinton liked too. So interesting that to happen, and for Anthony Bourdain to talk about being threatened by Hillary's people, right? He posted about that, and turn up dead in a bathroom after, you know, this interview I read that was published posthumously, but given, it was only maybe a week or 10 days before he died. There seemed to be absolutely no indication that the guy was suicidal, and his own mother said, he's the last person I thought would commit suicide. So Asia Argento's reaction of being kind of like, wow, we have our privacy, this is devastating, I didn't know he was obsessed with suicide, kind of reaction really seemed to contradict her
credibility,
her language leading up to that, right?
Right.
So
well, and how about the method of suicide?
Right.
Hasn't there been about 20 people that have hung themselves from their hotel door room? And I'll tell you, I worked hangings, okay? And it is not easy to hang yourself. You
right.
You know, people that do that, you know, you find them clutching at the rope, you know, and if their hands are free, they generally get down, you know. But
Anthony Bourdain, I've seen enough of his shows. The guy was not suicidal. He went through a lot in his life and whatever. I mean, he was living the dream. He's a guy that couldn't cook, who's a celebrity chef, doing a TV show on, you know, CNN, making tons of money. He's a celebrity. He wasn't suicidal. There was nothing to even indicate that he was suicidal. But But this is where, but all of these stories, it gets us away. You know, John, you talk about the Me Too movement, you know, how it, you know, was obviously funded and, you know, became this thing. I mean, just from our own experience on Twitter, you know, Me Too could be trending, you know, at any given moment, months back.
Well,
how many times, you know, and you, right. And, you know, say what you want about Pizzagate, but how many times has Pedogate ever trended? Even with Larry Nassar, when Nassar was trending, Pedogate would never, ever trend. Nobody even talks about Pedogate like it's even a thing, because nobody.
All these assholes do. They look at their tweets, they're telling everybody.
I've never ever seen like, all these nut jobs think that you know, Pedogate. I haven't seen. They always go back to Pizzagate, but they all, you know, not even acknowledging Pedogate, because you can't not acknowledge. I mean, the stories, you know, just go on and on and on of what's going on, and you know, in Hollywood, it's one.
I got a question for Rose McGowan. How do you appear on the same stage with a woman who's covered for a rapist, for a guy that flies around with a child trafficker 26 times? How do you appear on that same stage? How does that happen? Does that mean anything?
Yeah. She's yeah. And how does she and how does she not, not even make the distinction of what happened to her as, was she 15 or 16? And that, oh man, it's just unbelievable. I want to bring something up because Trish brought up Kevin Spacey, and
hey, the Traffic report too is proudly blocked by Kevin Spacey, by the way.
Oh, fantastic. So,
bit of trivia.
This all ties into an actor named Trish. Have you seen this? His name's Isaac Cappy. Have you seen him?
It sounds so familiar. I'm not sure though.
All right. Well, this will be a little informative. Anyway, let's go back, and I don't. It's been out there for a long time. There's a clip. There's a Family Guy clip, and it's between Stewie and Brian. Brian the dog, for anyone that doesn't watch.
Me.
Family Guy. And Brian's basically daring Stewie to do something. You don't know what it is. Finally, Stewie runs naked through a shopping mall, screaming, "I just escaped from Kevin Spacey's basement."
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So here we have, out of all the dares that they could have picked for a baby to do, and of all the basements to run out of,
Right.
Family Guy obviously knew that there was a problem with Kevin Spacey. So, because I don't think they would have randomly picked Kevin Spacey.
What is that guy's Twitter handle? Because I'm going to look him up and try to get his Twitter account up.
It's at Isaac Cappy, Kappi.
Spell Isaac.
Isaac. ISAAC.
ISAAC.
So,
and last name?
Kappy. I tweeted him to. I tweeted to the Traffic report. I meant to do that earlier. So a few days ago, and he has this entire thread of saying basically he can't keep his mouth shut anymore. He knows what goes on, and there's different parts to it. One part says he was offered to go to the Illuminati.
All right, here's his Twitter line. I'm putting it up right now.
Okay, all right. But okay, there. Oh, fantastic. So I don't know his connection to Seth Green. Seth Green, the actor, Austin Powers. He was Dr. Evil's son.
God damn it! Hold on. Son of a whore. Hold on.
All right. Well,
wait a minute.
I'll just talk.
Wait a minute. Damn it.
That's okay. Well, you're doing it.
I'm only working with one hand here, so give me a break. All right. Hold on. All right. So there it is again.
You're a trooper, John.
Thanks, Trish. All right.
Isaac Cappy also had some type of relationship with Seth Green. And Seth Green, who is the voice of Chris Griffin, the son on Family Guy, and basically calling him out as a pedophile. If you go down, it's a July 22nd tweet. So until today I didn't know who Isaac Cappy was, but there's just when you start seeing these connections, and it's at least worth pursuing. And you have somebody on Twitter, if somebody came out and accused me of anything, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to defend myself. Yeah. So there you have it.
And one of the most spectacular things that has emerged out of this new model that we've built in terms of, getting the truth out to people who want to know it, is that with the whole crowdsourcing aspect, it's like if something comes across that turns out to be you know, fabricated or a ruse or whatever. People figure it out really fast. So
yeah, and let me just float a theory, you know, to you guys, and I know you're all probably on the same page, but we've got a documentary that has witnesses testifying in this documentary that Bryan Singer and a host of other people in Hollywood raped them as kids. Okay, it's called An Open Secret. Okay, we had Matt, one of the producers, Valentinas, on this show, and it went nowhere. They took it to Cannes, I believe, and it didn't start to get any traction until Larry Nassar was breaking, and you know, I think we had a small part in getting their information out, and so you've got cases that are right there, and you've got live witnesses. Okay, but what are we seeing? We're seeing tweets from some idiot, you know, on The Office. We're seeing, okay, they're exposing this and they're exposing that. Aren't we hearing about the prosecutions? And Bryan Singer has fled the country. Okay, Brooks Pierce, the other one, has fled the country and is fronting a Bitcoin business in England that is financing child porn through the dark web. And we're hearing about Rainn Wilson's tweets, you know?
right.
I agree with, you know, and that I think that's what everybody here is saying. This is all just a psychological operation by different factions of our corrupt and evil governing bodies that are trying to stem the flow, which I don't think they're going to be able to do.
No.
Of real cases that may or may not being prosecuted right now. And I guess the Open Secret is about to release another interview where this young actor, you know, details everything that Bryan Singer did to him. That's extraditable. Sorry, that you know. So what? Yeah, I'm you know what I mean. So
well, at the same time, too, you know, Allison Mack has been charged with human and child sex trafficking, and you know, she's straight out of Hollywood. This and nothing is being said about it. Claire Bronfman was just arrested, and you know, she's a billionaire who would funded Nexium to the tune of $150 million, and she's not being charged with any of the trafficking crime.
Right, and it's, if I can just interject, it's just as it, just remember Backpage, the CEO, he basically got charged with what? Money laundering.
Right.
It's beyond money laundering. Obviously a lot more than that, but that's how they walk away. You get an award from
Rico.
You get an award from Mr. Mueller back in 2011 or 12 when they tried to take Backpage down before, if you all remember. The case was heard in California, and it was thrown out within 30 days. 30 days.
It's really incredible. You know, and I think, you know, as these instances start coming fast and furiously, it really becomes so impossible to deny that I think, at least at this point, while we're not seeing any legitimate prosecutions of these individuals, the truth of the matter is, as these new charges come forward, more and more that people are not denying them or dismissing them out of hand. They're like, oh, wow, him too? kind of
right.
thing.
It's normalizing. All it is doing is normalizing it, quote unquote, because obviously there's so many instances like back to back to back, right? And as they go, they get even stronger, you know?
Well, you know, and we did a year's worth of shows on every organization you could think of. And that's what I'm talking about. We're living in ancient Rome, you know, the last days of ancient Rome. And I actually tweeted Anthony Bourdain, and he laughed about this, but he was tweeting something, and I tweeted, I said, you know what the last sign of a dying empire is? And I said, it's celebrity chefs. And that's true. That's actually true. And I think he tweeted back a smiley face or whatever. But, you know,
But just
that's where we're at, you know, and it's the Boy Scouts, it's the Girl Scouts, it's
the Vatican. I mean, how many priests now are we seeing? A cardinal now in the U.S. was, you know, stripped of his ministry, and again, they're focusing entirely on the fact that he was abusing his power over seminarians. Quiet, you guys. Sorry. And they completely overlook the fact that he was systematically raping children as a priest. You know, the Spanish Church, Catholic Church, is now defending itself in a case where 300,000 babies were stolen from their parents and trafficked by the Catholic Church. I mean, and this dates back 100 years at least. That's just in Spain. And we also know of these kinds of things going on in Ireland with the Catholic Church, and they obstruct at every turn. I mean, these networks are protected like, you know, like nothing I could have ever imagined. It really is. Rod Hodham, how many people have died trying to expose them? Nancy Schaefer investigated CPS and found it was a, you know, bona fide taxpayer-funded, government-sanctioned child trafficking network. That's all it was.
And people talk about the FBI, and does anybody realize that? Okay, well, when I was in the fire department, there was you know, we went to like officer training and management courses, and it was about the culture of an agency. Okay, and if you're a fire department and your officers are pieces of shit, you're going to have a shitty department. Well, does anybody remember that the FBI was basically run for almost a century by a cross-dressing closet psychopath, homosexual? You know, what are we expecting justice from this agency?
Right, and this guy Mueller, who's here now, Mueller was in the state's attorney's office in Massachusetts when I initially moved here. This was when the Whitey Bulger was dumping bodies in the Boston Harbor, and I used right outside of the apartment building where I lived next to UMass was where they were taking the bodies out. Robert Mueller prosecuted 6 different men for crimes they did not commit to protect Whitey Bulger and his gang. He was notorious for covering up mobster activity here.
John Kennedy, the head of the FBI in New York. That was Whitey's buddy.
Yeah, well, you know, Whitey Bulger's brother was Speaker of the Massachusetts House or something. I can't remember. But anyway, it's like, so, you know, this is Mueller. This is the guy. And those convictions of those 6 men were overturned and the state fined for those convictions. So it's not like these were just allegations. These were confirmed. So again, these are the people who are running our law enforcement.
Yeah. And I think we have unreal expectations to think, because the judges, part of the law enforcement, you know, and everything else are part of this culture that we live in. And this culture that we live in produces a video like Dan Harmon did, and nobody says anything about it. And
or defends it. Who can defend imitating the rape of an infant? My God, like you said,
the Washington Post. That's who.
Jesus.
They wrote an article on this asshole and said something about it's or it was one of the other ones that
CNN did. They wrote something.
That it was probably appropriate that Disney there's a joke, another grooming organization got rid of this guy, but it was for the wrong reason or some horseshit, and you know,
Trish, are you familiar with the fact that Robert Mueller was classmates with John Kerry
Hold on a
at
second.
a
Yes.
Catholic school in, I think, Rhode Island?
What's up, honey?
Robert Mueller's father,
Okay.
or grandfather, like both his father and grandfather were in previous administrations. I mean, that family has a long bloodline, and along with the Carries as well. These are guys out of Yale, right? Skull and Bones.
Yeah. I'm going back to their high school. They were John Kerry and Robert Mueller were actually classmates in high school.
Yep, at private boarding school here in Massachusetts. I can't remember which one.
We're getting some chat room feedback. Mueller needs to be in Gitmo. I agree. Bailey's talking about the Podesta brothers. Yeah, and we're living in ancient Rome. I'm not sure this culture is salvageable. I don't know. Other than
It's it.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
All right. So they both go to a. It's in New Hampshire. I'm gonna get the school right now. Come on. Anyway, at that prep school, they've talked about how there have been decades and decades and decades of sexual abuse. There was a very good article in the Boston Globe about from the same team that did the Spotlight article exposing the Boston diocese about how there's a massive child sex abuse problem in these elite prep schools.
Yeah.
It goes back decades.
Yeah.
And one of the schools that is prominently named is the one that Robert Mueller and John Kerry went to. And I'm going to get the stinking name of the school as soon as I can find
Paul's.
St. Paul's
There.
in New Hampshire. So,
Yeah, I have a good friend who went there.
Yeah, but we did a show on this a year ago. How do they do this? How do they control politics? How do they control all the banking? They groom the kids. They send them to prep schools, and Oxford and Harvard and Yale. Duh.
I mean,
Well, that's just it. The focus needs to be on the youth. I mean, they're getting tagged right from the rip. Like right out the gate, they're getting tagged, and then they're being brought up, getting abused, and then they're going to obviously turn into a Mueller, Schiff, whatever. There's, because they have a grudge now, right? I'm not saying they were abused because I don't know for sure, obviously, but I'm just saying in general.
Sorry, but the general public is just not. I don't know if it's intelligent enough, awake enough, whatever the word you want to use. I mean, what are the chances that back in 2004 that Bush and Kerry, the two people from the same exact fraternity that were there right around the same time, would both be running for fucking president?
Just a coincidence.
Yes. You got a Robert Mueller, and now you got Robert Mueller, another connection to John Kerry. I mean, John Kerry, we're getting way off topic, but he's married to Teresa Hines, whose husband was a very, very popular senator who probably had presidential aspirations, a senator from Pennsylvania. That's who right. Died in a helicopter or a small plane crash back in 1991. Then she takes over the Hines fortune and marries John Kerry. It's just these things you just go on and on and on, and the rabbit hole is just way.
And you can go back. I mean, if you look at any of Bill Cooper's work, and I mean, it goes back to Sumeria, for Christ's sake. I mean, that's 5,000-6,000 years ago. These same families, same bloodlines, doing the same shit. So,
No, it's so true, and it's so shocking and enormous to sort of wrap your head around to be able to appreciate the day-to-day implications for the rest of us. And, you know, these are the people who are at Bohemian Grove right now deciding, you know, walking around in black robes, pretending to sacrifice a young child on an altar in front of a giant carved owl. They dance around naked. They bring in male prostitutes. I mean, all kinds of great stuff. And they're, you know, deciding policy that affects billions of people. And it's just like, do you really think that it's a good idea for folks who go every year to spend 2 weeks doing rituals and worshiping in front of a giant carved owl,
Moloch,
deciding for you your fate?
Well, this is, and people are confused too, because they think, oh, well, they're Satanists, and the ones at the top, you know, that it's their religion is Mystery Babylon that dates way before Judeo-Christian and everything else. It has its roots in Samaria and Egypt, and they use the Satanist thing too, because yeah, they have that aspect of it. But the ones at the top believe they're gods. They know that that's all bullshit, and that it's just like the dogma in any other crank religion. But the ones at the very top are convinced they are gods. And when you have human beings, when you have human beings with that belief, how are they going to treat other human beings? You know, like they do.
Right, and at Grove too, they're like cremation of care ceremony to open the 2 weeks. It's like, so, and the cremation of care means they're, you know, eliminating their guilt, they freeing themselves of conscience as they're deciding the fates of billions of people. Yeah. And it's just like, that should not inspire confidence in anyone.
It should inspire, you know, revolution in the streets is what it should inspire.
Yeah, bringing Bohemian Grove full circle to Hollywood. Has everyone seen Dragnet with Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks, 1987?
Yep.
Have you seen that, Trish? Cal? Yeah. Okay, so you remember the scene where they're going after these, you know, it's the pagan society, and basically doing the same type of Bohemian Grove type rituals, sacrificing virgin, you know, blah blah blah. You remember that? Remember that scene?
You know, I saw that movie. I don't remember that.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's like Dan Aykroyd and Tom Hanks. They actually dress up to fit in. They try to infiltrate the PAGAN. Anyway, so I'd gotten it, you know, something sparked my memory, and one of the writers, his name's Alan Zweibel, and I tweeted out, like, I wonder what Tom Hanks and Dan Aykroyd and Alan Zweibel know about you know, Bohemian Grove. And Alan Zweibel on Twitter, you know, he actually tweeted back at me and laughed. But how would they know about, like, where was the inspiration for that scene? And people would have to go and watch the movie and see the scene of them infiltrating this type of, you know, ritual and things like that. It just came out of their imagination.
What year was that movie, Howie?
1987. It's based, you know, it's based on the old Dragnet. Dan Aykroyd is
right.
Friday, and Tom Hanks, he's like a whatever the other guy's name, but Tom Hanks is like a goofball in it. So Dan Aykroyd's like the straight, you know, straight-laced cop, and but there's, like I said, if you go back and look at the scene, but I just found it, and I found it interesting that, you know, I found this writer, one of the writers is still alive. He's right on Twitter at Alan Zweibel, and he tweeted back, and he actually retweeted my tweet, and like laughing at it, you know, and it's like, dude, I'm asking you a serious question. What do you know about it? Like, where did this come from? And you're just, you know, everything's a big fucking joke to him.
Yeah, what's so fucking funny? That's the name of the show.
Funny.
Yeah, and speaking of which, there was an account, I apologize, I can't remember the name of the journalist, where he was invited to attend 4 days of the events at Bohemian Grove one year. And he one of those events that he attended or observed was the cremation of care. And what he described was this, these people standing around in black robes. There's an artificial lake on, in front of the stage behind where the audience sits, and they row across the lake with this, I can't remember if he said the coffin, the body was in the coffin or not on the lake, but they bring this bundle that's supposed to be a child that they're, it's a mock sacrifice supposedly, and he describes how the bundle is passed around and embraced by the people who are on the stage, and that wrote that just really stuck with me was that it seemed to struggle. And then they put it on the altar and then light it, and it burns. And there's recordings of screaming and laughter, like just really horrific sounding kind of stuff that's piped in as they're doing this. And I really was left to wonder, like, how the fuck they gonna make the thing simulate struggling? You know what I mean?
You know these assholes use real kids. You know they do.
Well, and that's the thing. They put it in your fucking face, and I would bet money that they did it with something that was alive, just to fuck with people and to be able to say, oh no, that wasn't. It was just all play. It was, you're just imagining it.
Yeah, and does anybody really think Alex Jones got in there with a camcorder and got?
I mean, he got in there, but I don't think he just got in there.
Yeah, does anybody believe that he snuck in and snuck out?
Well, did you see the RT journalist? They did, I think it was like 2010, 11, maybe. RT network sent a journalist there who stood outside. There are usually protests every year, and she, just in approaching one of the many armed security guards protecting the area, they were extremely hostile with her, and that's like,
Secret Service.
Is there someone? And they're like, you need to leave or we're calling the police. You need to leave now or we're calling the police. And she's like, so nobody can talk to me. You need to leave now. Like, it was just really ridiculous.
That ceremony, and sometimes it has 2, 3, or more presidents or ex-presidents at it. So do you think that anybody could get in there and get out of there?
No. Sneak? No.
Mm-mm.
No way. No effing way.
Not to mention they're contractors. They have so many layers of security that some are, if you have a president there, you'll have
just disappear. Right?
Yeah. So
John, I had actually shared with you, I think it was this past week, but I had provided you with, there was a list in the WikiLeaks. It was a Bohemian Grove guest list for 2008. One of the known guests was no other than Crumb's husband. Crumb Pelosi's husband was actually invited. I don't know if he attended. It's quite a list. I don't know if you remember, but maybe we could put that in the show notes, maybe somewhere.
Yeah.
It's an interesting.
Nancy Pelosi's husband?
I'm sorry?
Did you say Nancy Pelosi's husband?
Yes. I believe his
That's
name is
well, like,
Paul.
I'll just go back to the words of George Carlin. So it's a great big club and you ain't in it.
Yeah.
Thank God. if we were in the club, I wouldn't be holding Trish on my cell phone. We'd have some big studio somewhere.
Right.
John, can we touch on a couple more of the what's so fucking funny part of
Yeah,
for
sure.
everybody that's watching? It wasn't this year. It was last year. Final episode on Saturday Night Live. The child molesting robot skit.
Yep. Rock, who's
Yeah.
running for president, by the way. We're talking about it.
And it was just like, and this was when, like there was so much, pedogate stuff coming out. And of all the thing, it was the most evil invention in the world. And they came up with a child molesting robot. And obviously, based on a humor standpoint, yes, that would be one of the worst things. But you don't make fun of that. But they never would have made fun of normal rape. They would have had a raping robot. They had to make it a child raping robot, and somehow there was this uncomfortable laughing, but you just wouldn't do that. I wouldn't do that. I consider myself a very funny person. I make all kinds of jokes. I make jokes about a lot of things.
You're a funny guy.
What's that?
You're a funny guy.
Yeah, I'm a funny guy. People may not know that about me.
Funny how?
But,
funny how?
Yeah.
I'm here to amuse you.
Yeah. So anybody that hasn't seen the skit, this was it's a little over a year now.
I'm so rude. I could have offered Trish some coffee.
Yeah. The other very famous thing that was completely scrubbed from YouTube was a roast of Rob Reiner. Have you seen this, Trish? Kel? Where Al Franken of people, is roasting Rob Reiner. This is probably pre-Senate days, and making a joke of how Rob Reiner was raped by his father, Carl Reiner, as a baby. Going into things like swab him down and that. There's still a clip of it on YouTube. It's not a very good clip, but it's essentially been scrubbed from the internet.
Yep, and Rob Reiner has been talked about having some kind of association with the Coreys.
Yeah. Well, there's a picture. There's a picture with there's a famous picture with Rob Reiner. I don't. What did they must have worked together on something.
Yeah.
Oh wait, did they work together? It was Rob Reiner, Stand By Me.
Yeah, he was a director.
So.
He was a director, I believe.
Okay. Well, then Corey Feldman was in Stand By Me.
Yeah.
That would be
speculated. That's the big name that he won't come across with.
And and saying this, it doesn't necessarily add up to a hill of beans, but when you once again now you can connect Al Franken to Rob Reiner to Corey Feldman. Is everything a fucking coincidence? Like I don't, everything. I don't subscribe to that.
Well, nothing is a coincidence.
Well, right, but what? And the trolls will always come back. What can you prove? Well, I can't prove anything unless we get people to talk, and we got to get people to talk. And getting back now, there's this, the reason I'm bringing up this Isaac Cappy. There's somebody who's talking. I don't know who he is. I don't know what he knows. I don't know anything about him. But somebody's talking. So if somebody's talking, let's pay attention very, very, very close.
Well, all those kids that Bryan Singer raped are talking. They've already talked. What the fuck is being done about it?
But typically if somebody talks, they're harmed. If they're a threat, they're going to be harmed. They push a narrative and they put, somebody famous they groom them, obviously, like fake news, right? So they have them pushing a narrative because they're groomed. So it's just like a vicious cycle, which we all know, right? And then if anyone truly tries to expose them, obviously we know what happens,
Well,
more
and
often
I
than
worry
not.
about these kids because they're on the
Right.
record. I mean, they're on the record. All those kids in that documentary, and now even more. There's a new one that's on the record. They're out there. There's nobody protecting them.
Right.
So what the fuck is the Justice Department allowing Bryan Singer to be a fugitive from justice? Are there any prosecutions in the works?
Because they have so much shit going on, right? We're turning corners, going around down hills, up hills. I mean, that's just how they spin it. And then they think that we're going to forget, or they hope, that we're going to forget. I'm not going to forget. I obviously know y'all aren't going to forget.
Well, anyone that believes that draining the swamp was going to take 2 years or 4 years,
No.
You don't unwind 100 years, 200 years in 2 years.
Yeah.
But people that generally care about children, about changing our society, changing our world, need to shut off the television, need to shut off
Hollywood,
all nonsense, and start working harder. Because one person, Donald Trump, is not going to do this by himself. It ain't going to happen. He's got enough wolves at his door that, obviously.
Yeah. And it's on us. It's not, it's not on the government. It really isn't.
Right.
It's on us. It's on every single.
And now you have your playlist now. Howie, I think it said Howie Confronts Everybody is the playlist. So keep doing what we're doing. I think we covered everything we can cover. We've beat Hollywood to death, and it needs to be beat to death. And anybody that watches it or consumes any of their garbage is out of their fucking mind. So
if I can give a suggestion, it's time to take the spotlight off of Hollywood, right? They've had enough spotlight. The spotlight needs to come on the innocent children, the average everyday child that's getting abused, because those are the ones that are getting kidnapped, stolen, whatever you want to call it. They're the ones that are getting harmed while the spotlight is still remaining on Hollywood, right?
It's so interesting that you say that. I said one of the most powerful things that if we could get it out there, and I don't know how to do this, but is to get, an actual child to speak. There's been a few. The thing that stands out in my mind is the 60 Minutes Australia interview from the early 90s about the girl, and I don't know her name, who suffered horrific satanic ritual abuse. And but I don't know how we do that. I don't know how we get to a kid and put an interview and have them talk. But what we're putting out there is not getting. We got to get people's attention, and we're not getting people's attention. And an actual child speaking, saying this happened to me. If not, I feel like we're just going to keep going, putting out there, comes and goes, and enough people aren't paying attention. That's my take on it. So,
well, hopefully that's what we've tried to make this show is a forum to do that. And we've had some success, and, we need more people to come forward, and they can do it anonymously. They can do it any way they want, but it's always
Well,
there.
oftentimes people are, they're wanting to get involved, and they are involved, maybe just on a silent, because not everyone has a platform, not everyone has, the tools to let themselves be heard. So Howie, you brought up a great idea. I don't know if there'd be some liability in there with parents and
Yeah,
all
it's
of that, but that's obviously
slow.
when we get there. But there was some older children that just actually were involved with the back page, I believe, and they had went to the White House and had met with President Trump. They appeared to be older. I'm pretty sure they probably didn't get much of a, they got to go to the White House.
I think there's thousands of
thousands
survivors that are of age now. They're not minors anymore, and
exactly.
And we are, there is a network for me. I mean, between everybody that watches Trish and Albert and the Facebook pages and the it's a network, and we are getting a lot bigger than we used to be. I mean, we got like 2,000 subscribers to the show that hopefully at least listen to some of it that's going on. But that's the message, and you guys know. I mean, anything that comes up, we communicate pretty well, and we just have to keep doing what we're doing, and
just be consistent.
Yeah,
that's right. Because just those the networks are super important, not just for helping give the survivors and whistleblowers a louder voice through our collective sharing, but these are people who have been isolated so badly for so long that just having a group of people who are there supporting them and sort of nurturing them back, as they work through their trauma and healing. I think that's a really meaningful part of, I think, what all of us have tried to do, and I think it's been pretty successful, and we're seeing the results of that through the expansion of the number of people who are coming forward. So I don't know, I just think it's one of those things where it's not discussed, but really so important for those people to just know that they're safe and when they get attacked by others, there's a whole group of people that always turn up and are like, set that person in their place. So I think that's incredibly powerful, and I think it builds on itself.
Absolutely.
I agree.
So, and get you tweet. Go the fuck over to Facebook and watch Trish and Albert every day at noon. Okay? They come over here, we go back and forth. There's a lot of information out there, and if you're on social media, you might have to jump your medium of choice and support, what everybody's doing, and we tend to do that. But if you haven't lately, just I hate Facebook, I hate Twitter.
Oh, I do too.
I hate YouTube, but here I am, so. Support what everybody, each other's doing, and we do that to a pretty good extent. But I think there's always room for improvement.
Trish, I actually went to tag you on a tweet today. It was the Family Guy clip. How can we find you?
No? I'm only on Facebook. I've been banned. Like my IP, my phone number, and my devices have all been banned. And so I have to use a Tor browser on Twitter, and it just is so slow and painful. I'm like, fuck you. I'm not doing it anymore. So I'm just doing Facebook, but I'm going to get once I get shut down on Facebook, I'll be over on Gab.
Yes, I think we'll all end up there eventually. Yeah.
What about using a VPN? Doesn't work.
I thought about it, but it's just like, I feel like sort of the mental frame of mind to bring to this is that I'm not going to play their fucking game. It's like, okay, I battled through for for 6 accounts, and my last one, I had 26,000 followers. They just shut me down. I had no warnings, nothing. And so it was just like this voting system. It's like, I'm not playing your fucking game, you know? So I'll go to Facebook. I'll do as much as I can there. And then if they shut me down, I'm on Gab. And a lot of, make sure we're following each other. We'll find each other. It's just like, I just want to use their weapons against them for as long as I can. And so that's kind of how I'm prepared.
And it's interesting that they're obviously censoring people, because I believe in 2014, and I can share the case in the group and then we can tweet it out, but Twitter actually sued Comey. What's his name? He looks like Comey is one of them, but basically McCabe wasn't on there, but the Department of Justice was on there, Comey, and there was 2 other names, but Twitter was suing them for, I don't know if it was the Freedom of Information Act, but it had to do with the First Amendment. And it's a very interesting case, and it's actually the original petition, which makes it even better, because Twitter's in there actually. And I don't know why, but Perkins Coie actually represented Twitter out of California, which to me was odd because we know where they sit. But this was back in 2014, and I'll share it with y'all and I'll tweet it out. But it's an interesting how, for what they do to others that have a voice or try to have a voice of a good message, they will obviously ban you and do what they've done to Trish. So,
well, they say I'm rereading a book, Confederacy of Dunces, and I guess somebody's speaking the truth when all the dunces form a confederacy to
right.
shut them up. So,
right.
Thank you, everybody. Trish,
thank you.
Awesome as always. Kelly, your tireless efforts to inform and educate us. Howie, just go out and raise some hell. We're needing I'm jonesing for another video.
I know.
It won't
vicariously through you.
We got that trip we got to go on to DC.
Yeah, we got something. Yeah, we got something good. It's going to take a little bit of work and planning, but we got something that's long overdue planned. Mm-hmm. It's just a matter of getting it right, because I want to bring everyone to DC and this.
And I will be metaphorically riding shotgun on that trip.
Yeah, and if there's anyone else giving a book tour or whatever, I'm waiting. I'm chomping at the bit. I mean, I have to wait until there's an event. I can't just create one. So, and obviously, we're gonna. I'll say it every single time. At the end of every single show, we need to be very, very, very diligent in my opinion. We need to be very diligent in our support of Donald Trump in the 2018 midterms. These things are important. The left is organized in ways. I found other stuff this weekend. These organizations. I probably want to infiltrate one of them that are going to these get out the vote type of things. These door knockers. There's a lot of money involved, and if everyone sits back and thinks like, oh, they're going to have people voting in numbers we've never seen before, and anyone that cares about children in this country better get their ass to the polls in November.
All right. And with that, I'll bid everybody good night. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Cal.
Good night.
Hang out for a minute. I thank everybody in the chat room. They're awesome, every last one of you. And we had 21 viewers the whole night. It's got to be Kelly and Trish drawing them, because it sure ain't you and me, Howie. So hang out for a minute, and I'm just gonna say good night to everybody, and I'll be right there. Good night.
Good night.